So we are back in the back area of our tropical rainforest right now, and we are with our Salt Creek tiger beetles, which are actually in this chamber to my right here. And this is a conservation project that we have been working on since 2019. This species of beetle is one of the most endangered species of beetle in the United States. They live in one very small area in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they're highly adapted to very salty, saline marshlands, and essentially they're not able to expand much beyond that range, so they're highly specialized to that area. The females will only lay their eggs in soil of a certain salinity, which, because they're so geographically restricted, that does make them very vulnerable. And what we have done is partnered with Omaha's Henry Doorly Zoo and a few other partners, and we raised the beetles from shortly after they hatch to near maturity, and then we actually release them back into the wild in their native range to try to increase the wild population. And how we do that is we house them here in this chamber, and this is a scientific chamber, and it allows us to regulate the temperature, humidity, and light to very specific levels. And with this, we're able to simulate actual seasons, so we can get these larvae through spring, summer, fall, and then winter, where they'll actually go dormant, and then essentially do very little to nothing over the winter, and then warm them up and get them active again in the spring. And this process typically goes from July, when they hatch, to May of the following year, when they tend to pupate into adult beetles and then go out in the wild. Their lifespan while we care for them is approximately 1 year. In the wild, we think it's probably a little bit closer to 2 years. They have to work a little harder for the food in the wild, and they don't get quite as many calories as we're able to provide. So the way we care for them, they're actually able to grow much faster. But again, the goal is just to bring the wild population up to higher levels, because like I said, they are critically endangered. Surveying them is difficult just due to the nature of counting beetles in the wild, but we think there are probably only a few hundred left in the wild. So each one of these cups houses a single beetle larva, and 3 times a week we will open the cup and we will make sure that the soil isn't too dry or too damp. We will remove any uneaten food debris from a previous feeding, which we feed them very small crickets and wingless fruit flies, and then we will add more food. In this case it is fruit flies, and then I put the lid back. And we're able to, even if we don't see the beetle larvae directly, which oftentimes we don't because they spend most of their time under the soil, we're able to tell their activity level from the number of food items they've eaten since our previous feeding, and their hole. These are their burrow holes that they will make, that they essentially will lurk near the opening and then grab any food items when they come near. Some cups, compared to some of the ones I just showed you, will not have any holes. And that is oftentimes evidence that they are closing things up to go through their to grow and go through their next larval stage. They also do that as we get close to winter. As we move through the summer into fall, I gradually lower the temperature of the scientific chamber, and then I gradually decrease their food items based on their activity level. And that simulates them moving into winter, which will encourage them to close up all of any burrow holes they have and go dormant under the surface. Because in the wild in Nebraska, there are no food items to eat. So they can't afford to be burning calories by being active throughout the winter when there's nothing to eat. So going dormant is a critical part of their life cycle during the winter. And then when I start warming the chamber again in the spring, that activates their body to start being active again. They'll start eating, and then they can finish the last stages of their development by becoming a beetle. And that's when we can get them out into the wild to ideally find and mate with wild beetles to increase that population.